Rise up. You and me are the solution to these challenges. Oh yeah. Rise up. You and me are the solution to these challenges. Oh yeah. Innovative and volunteerism, food security and youth unemployment, climate actions and selfless solutions. These are things that we need to engage for. When I lift up my eyes, I see people still living in affliction. Mothers and children go to bed without food on their table. Youth unemployment, the biggest statistic. From headlines every in Africa. Climate change impact us in everywhere, whether it's flood or drought.
Welcome to the Mindset Spot, a show of solutions discussed every week. And of course, today, we're going to be diving straight into a very important area, which is mindset of fearless yet mindful action. A critical theme for all of us navigating the complex world of today and how we can leverage this to turn environmental challenges into opportunities and inspire our young people across the world to become solution providers. Joining me now is my co-host, Daniel Afumbom Munang. Daniel, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Well, I'm glad to be back. And for those of you guys who are watching for the first time, expect the unexpected and let us talk together about the mindset of fearlessness yet mindful action.
Absolutely. The mindset of fearlessness and not carelessness is a very important subject for us to discuss. And I think that before we start off with that, when you look across the world today, right, people behave sometimes as if they are not mindful of their actions. And what I want to bring up very upfront here is that what does it mean to be fearless in our pursuit of solution? And why is it so important? Why is it important to be fearless? And what do we need to do so that as we are fearless, we are not careless? What do you think about this, Afu?
Well, I think that why it's important to be fearless is because being fearless allows you to create new opportunities for yourself and also push yourself to limits that you've never done before. But in this moment, I think it's important, especially not to be careless, because when you're careless, you kind of forget your original goal and you're just too absorbed that I'm not going to do it. Whereas fearlessness is I'm going to do it, whereas carelessness is I don't care enough to do it.
Absolutely. I think that's a very good point. And the reality is that fearlessness and mindfulness are two essential qualities that we must be able to embody as we navigate the ever-evolving landscape of challenges, especially environmental challenges, right? We're talking climate change. There are droughts and floods, and there are wildfires in Canada as we're speaking today, right? Being fearless means daring to challenge the status quo, daring to step outside our comfort zones and do that which is needed and to explore new horizons. So it's about asking the tough questions and seeking answers even when the path is not clear. Yet, as you've said, fearlessness should never be confused with carelessness. It should never become carelessness because every decision we make, every action we take should be treated with mindfulness and responsibility. So a young person out there who wants to challenge the status quo should be mindful and also take a responsible step to do so. Not for 5 minutes of fame, because we must not rush to solutions without considering the impact and the consequences. And this is the attitude we need to turn environmental challenges into opportunities. With a combined force of our skills, our talents, we can unlock the potential of our own abilities, which is the essence of innovative volunteerism. Because our individual action, when united, can drive transformative solutions. But what we should never forget is that being fearless is not being careless. So, Afu, now let's move to the second aspect. How can we ensure that our fearlessness doesn't turn into carelessness?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that one way for us to control our fearlessness is also being mindful and being self-aware and consistently evaluating yourself and the things that you've been doing and how they either benefit or negatively impact you. And I think that way would stop a lot of carelessness because once you're self-aware, you're able to mitigate some problems or some character traits that can lead to carelessness. So I think that in order for us to mitigate carelessness from being fearful, we just need to be self-aware as a whole.
Absolutely, we need to be self-aware as a whole, and I think that beautifully aligns with what we need to understand. Because while fearlessness drives us forward, it's crucial to balance it with mindfulness. And as you've said, this means that we need to consider the potential impact of our actions. We need to consider the planning and carefully make sure that we make informed decisions. So it's about being bold but not reckless. And I think that is a very important point. It's about being bold but not reckless. And being fearless in our pursuit of solution means having the courage to tackle difficult challenges. And the biggest difficult challenge today is climate change. It's plastic pollution. It's waste littered in our communities and in our streets each and every day. And even when the path isn't clear, our fearlessness should be about pursuing solutions, not always challenging and blaming and complaining. It's about stepping outside of our comfort zones. It's about challenging the status quo and being willing to take risk, but risk to solve problems. It's important because progress often requires us to face challenges. So now let's get to the next aspect, which we're going to get to that after this short break, which once we come back, we're going to discuss how then can we make sure that we combine the two and still pursue solutions.
Let's embrace innovative volunteerism. Ah ouais, c'est cool. Rise up, you and me are the solution to these challenges. Oh yeah, rise up.
We are back, and the discussion continues. And for those of you who are watching and joining, we are discussing the mindset of fearlessness, yet mindful action. How do we ensure that fearlessness does not lead to carelessness? And that is what we are discussing today. Under the aspect, before we went on break, we are discussing how do you ensure that our fearlessness should be about solutions. We are about stepping out of our comfort zone to the solution space and so forth. Before break, we are discussing this aspect, and you beautifully brought up a very important dimension, which was that at least we must then be able to ensure that fearlessness drives us forward. So now, how can we effectively leverage our skills and talents without fear to turn challenges to opportunities? What would you say?
Well, I think that if we're afraid of something, we should turn that into passion to become more fearless, because fear is just in the mind. And I believe that the only person who knows that you're afraid is you. So with
Correct.
that, you can turn, no one else knows that you're afraid. So just fake it until you make it. Because realistically, you're not going to be bold overnight. You're not going to, it's something that you learn, just like how you're not going to be able to figure out a massive equation in one night. So I think that fearlessness is also something like that, which is built. So I think that because of this, we need to realize that we only know fear in ourselves, and no one else knows that we're scared unless we let them know that we're scared. Hence, in order for us to overcome fear, we need to turn that into drive, that I'm so afraid that I'm going to do well so that my fears don't come to meet me. So I think that's why it's very important to turn fear into fearlessness.
Indeed. And the way you put it, I think, builds up to the fact that we can leverage our skills and talents by first identifying what we are good at and passionate about without fear. And it takes us to get out of our comfort zones, as you've beautifully said it, right? And then we can apply these skills to challenges, to environmental challenges. For instance, if you are good at public speaking, you could raise awareness about environmental issues, about climate change, about plastic and waste, about biodiversity loss, which is something that each and every one of us can do. If you are skilled in technology, you could develop new tools to trace and solve environmental problems. It's about using what we have to make a difference. And that takes us to get out of our comfort zone. And it means we need to be fearless so that We don't have to be afraid of how somebody is going to talk about our ascent. But if we start getting worried about how somebody is going to talk about our ascent, then we are not going to get out there to create awareness to the environmental challenges of plastic pollution, to climate change issues. And therefore, that was a very good point that you brought up. So, Nafu, before I hand over to you, what role do you think young people can play leveraging innovative volunteerism without being afraid and without being careless? What role do you think they can play in driving these climate action solutions, nature action, pollution action solutions, using fearlessness but not being careless? What practically do you think can be done?
Well, I think that many young people possess the skill of social media literacy. So I think that just by this sole tool, we can spread the we can spread innovative volunteerism across nations, across continents, because if somebody makes a post about it and promotes it and boosts it, many more people are going to see the importance and value of innovative volunteerism. And I think that it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to have fear, but the most important thing is letting it get to you, and you don't want that to happen. So I believe that a way for young people to turn their fear into fearlessness includes being able to leverage their fears and turn that and use that as drive, turn your fear into drive. Furthermore, I believe that uh, many young people can also be self-aware, like I previously said, to ensure that they're not becoming careless and becoming mindful, because one thing that is very important is respect. Because if you're at a certain place, sometimes people think that respect isn't needed, but realistically that's not the case, because alongside your ideas you're also going to need to show charisma and personalities.
Good, good point. But a youth who is watching you from maybe Nakuru or Tukana or Kumasi in Ghana or Yaoundé in Cameroon or Bamenda or even Jinquin could ask the question, the attitude of many who are elders have been that they don't give room for young people to express themselves. So how do they get out of fear when they are being restricted to express themselves in the way that is possible?
Well, I don't think we're supposed to make people quote unquote get out of fear. I think it's more about masking your fear until you reach the point that you don't have to anymore. So I think that for those people who are in places where they feel restricted, be bold, be the voice that, obviously respectfully, but be the voice that makes things change, and be the person who um brings new ideas, brings new solutions, because realistically things have been the same for a long time. And would you want that to continue, or would you want to be the person who brings the new idea to the table? And I think if we did that in a respectful way, keyword respectful, and in a mindful way, and in a way that resonates in the community that you're in, because realistically if your community doesn't speak English and you're going to come in speaking big grammar from that people have never heard before, are your ideas going to be heard? No. So I think this links back to the point that we're not asking these young people to necessarily not have fear. We're asking them to put their fear on the back burner and put the ideas on the front table.
Wonderful, wonderful. I like the fact that everyone should be able to bring ideas in a mindful and respectful way. That takes me to this point, which is that the generation of today, which you are part of them, is such that they think they know it all. And that attitude sometimes make the elders to feel as if they are being undermined. What would you say about that?
I think that this links back to the same thing, fearless yet mindful, because somebody could be fearless, but they could also be careless in the same sense. So I think that while sharing ideas, it makes the most sense, and it's probably going to be most successful if you do it in a way that shows the elders what they're missing out on, rather than telling them in like a nonchalant way, saying that my idea this and that. So I think compromise is also another solution, because they obviously have their way of going about things, and you have your way, your new suggestion. So if we can have a fusion between both of them, so that the elder, something they've taken pride in for so long, doesn't go completely to waste, and something that you've created and can bring pride to the community isn't also wasted. So I think fusion as well and being able to compromise would limit the amount of elder feeling undermined because it's mindful thinking rather than careless thinking.
Excellent, excellent. That's a very good point, Afu. So now over to you as the co-host.
Yeah. So when you were doing your PhD and you had ideas for sustainable development and agricultural growth in Africa, how did you have fear, and how did you turn that into fearlessness and remain mindful in the process?
Yeah, very good point, Afu. I think the the way I was brought up was such that we were told to respect, we were taught to respect our elders, but at the same time, we were taught to not to never fear to do right. And I think what helped me to be fearless, but at the same time careful, was that when I saw something that was right, for example, studying to solve a problem had always been my passion, because why? It is the right thing to do to solve the problems in which we grow up seeing: crop failure, right? Alternative cooking solutions that are cheaper. Yeah. Advising people so that they can know what to do that is right. That gave me that ability that if it is right, then it is the right thing to do. And in the course of doing that, the carefulness came in from the perspective that not everybody will support you, even though it is right. So, and I've always said that the fact that it is right doesn't necessarily mean that people will support it. So you need to then learn to convince people. So to your question, what made me to be fearless was the drive towards solutions, which I thought it was the right thing to do. So it boils down doing right for the benefit of community, beyond your individuality, beyond the self-aggrandizement, is actually what makes me to be fearless. And that was built in my upbringing from being told, do right and give your best. And that motivated me to become fearless. But in the course of being fearless, we cannot be careless, because carelessness means that you will not even have the opportunity to show your fearlessness. And therefore, we must be mindful of other people's feelings, which is emotional intelligence, reading the room, reading the space, knowing what to say, knowing which words to use, and being apologetic where need be, and also being teachable and learning and recalibrating very quickly. That's how I have managed to navigate this terrain.
Excellent answer. And I think that you brought in a really good point about emotional intelligence, because realistically, if you have the right idea and you deliver it in a way that can offend a bunch of people, no matter how good your idea is it going to be cherished and respected? Probably not. So I think that you brought a really good point, because you're not going to be able to get your point across if you don't do it in the way that can be understood by others in a respectful way. And my
Correct.
next question for you comes in at, was how did you develop these skills? And on top of that, what made you to be able to put your carelessness aside in order to be mindful and be fearless? And what tips do you have to people who are even not even the youth, people who are your age watching this?
Yes.
Grown men and women, they still struggle with public speaking. They still struggle with even being on here. So I think that you would have some good tips to showcase to the globe.
Thank you, Afu, for that question, and also for driving me to provide tips, which I think is going to be beneficial for both the young, old, and even those who are young at heart. The first thing is this: you are never going to be told to do it until you do it. Like you always say, right? Which is Nike. Is it team? Just do it. But what I've learned, to answer your question, let me just pull back a little bit, is that very few people are actually going to tell you to do something until it is done. And in the course of that, what I learned is that it's good to take initiative. If you get up in the morning, regardless of whether it is you are in your own home or someone else's home, don't wait for that person to ask you to clean the floor or clean dishes. Get to the kitchen and clean it. You will receive an applause. And one of the things that I noticed is that people wait to be told things before they do it. Start to do it. If they don't want it, they will tell you, no, stop doing that. We don't want you to do it. That's fine. You lose nothing. If you do it right, they'll say, oh, I never thought this would be done. And I'm really glad it's been done. So it boils down to one word: take initiative to do that which is right. And that then, in the course of doing that, you are going to fail, and it is through failure that you learn. If you don't start, you will not know. If you don't know, you will not be able to have the experience. If you don't fail, you will not know. If you don't know, then you will not be able to progress. And therefore, always experimenting and innovating, doing the right, and I keep using the word doing the right thing, because doing wrong things, gossiping and abusing people and trying to do that which is only serving an individual is wrong. But trying to do that which is right, like for example, you don't need to be taught in school that climate change is one of the biggest challenge of humanity as we speak today. You can go read about it, and in a question in class about a problem, you can bring in climate change. Nobody asks you to do that, right? That's taking initiative. And because of that extra knowledge that you've gathered, it starts to give you confidence. And that's part of fearlessness, that you can be able to stand, articulate issues with confidence because you have understood the issue. And that takes me to the second point. Taking initiative is one. Do not wait to take initiative. Take initiative voluntarily and support and propose solutions. Even if you are wrong, at least you will learn from it. If you don't start, you will not know that you are wrong. The second one is to be selfless. And selflessness is that you don't do something just because you're going to get a reward. You do it because the right thing to do, and it can benefit someone elsewhere. Once one have that kind of attitude of selflessness, he or she will become fearless, because you don't do it for yourself, you do it for others. And therefore, even when it is not popular, you stand up because you are thinking about other people. The third is to be teachable. Sometimes you have to have the attitude to learn and the attitude to be guided. And that's called being teachable. And teachability comes from the perspective that, yes, I'll put up my hand, I'll say what I know. It might not be right, but in the course of my saying it, I might be corrected and I will learn a new thing. That an attitude that we must all develop. And the third one is we don't need to be fearful. People are afraid that they can go wrong. No, the biggest way to go wrong is to be afraid that you can go wrong. And when you don't try, then you go wrong. When you don't give in your best in something to excel, you go wrong. And when you then stay back, nothing changes. And therefore, trying to make sure that you are there, present, is important. And the last one is that your biggest ability is your availability. When you don't avail yourself to learn, innovative volunteerism is the best thing that has ever happened to everyone, which is how you voluntarily volunteer yourself to learn something new that can then solve a problem. And in the course of that, put more money in your pocket. That then helps you to build your confidence, grow through learning, enhance your skills, and that then reduces your fear. You become fearless in preferring solutions. In the course of doing that, just be mindful not to be careless in abusing people, being humble, being of value to society, being kind, and being selfless. And that is how it can always go. Overful.
Excellent work. And I think that before we round up, a lot of the viewers probably have a similar question. What sparked you to teach the youth about this? Because obviously you're full of ideas and tips, but it takes so much time, so much effort. And personally,
Thank you, Afu. Thank you. Thank you for saying it. Say it louder.
Well, it takes so much time, so much effort. And realistically, myself included, that's too much work. Nobody has time for that. But within 24 hours, you still find a way to manage work, mentorship, and all of these other aspects throughout just 24 hours in a day. So how do you, not the question isn't how do you get the time, is how do you get the drive, and what makes you want to do all of this? Because it's really a lot and it's really astonishing.
Change. What drives me is change. Positive change in other people. Growing up, we never had the opportunity to be mentored. And if we had the opportunity to be mentored as we do to others today, I believe that the world would have been a much better place, and more so African continent. And because of that gap that I saw and I still see today, what drives me is positive change in others. That if I can be able to inspire them, and those who can listen, because a lot of them don't listen, and those who can listen can be able to pick one or two things, Africa can become a better place and the world will become a better place as well. And therefore, that positive change is the trigger and the eagerness that drives me forward. And more importantly, it's about results, because at the end of the day, we can only get excellent results when human beings actually play their part. And for them to play their part, they need to be inspired to usher themselves to the solution space. They need to be motivated to usher themselves to the solution space. But someone somewhere needs to stand up and say, look, guys, you have what it takes to do it and you can do it. But these are the missing links that you must be able to take it forward. And the second aspect is this. Lack of self-belief is a very big problem across the continent and even to a larger extent, the world. And making people to self-believe and know that they are actually capable of doing it if they are able to put in some effort. Telling this is the biggest thing. And also the nature of my job is also to inspire people to be able to leverage environmental solutions, devise environmental solutions, leverage environmental solutions to make meaning in their lives, create opportunities, and drive transformational development for themselves. And you cannot achieve that without getting people to be part of the process, they're willing. The last aspect is that when you look at the entire African continent, even the world, Africa specifically having 60% of the population youthful, and at the same time with the youth, most of them born after the 1990s and a bulk of them born after the 2000s, what they have seen is that things need to be done for them. And that argument that things need to be done for them is very dangerous, because then entitlement comes in, and entitlement is a very dangerous thing that somebody will sit and say, my uncle should do it for me, my auntie should do it for me, but forgetting to understand that nobody have any right to do anything for anybody unless you yourself, you are offering value. So if the youth can be able to learn a skill so that they can exchange value for something, that will be an attitude that will ensure that everybody become productive, not receivers and dependent on others, but progressing because they can be able to offer value. And that's the message that I keep telling the young people. So the last part is de-risking this attitude of entitlement, of dependency, to make themselves believe that if you start to do something today and you fail, you learn from it. And more so, develop faith. Faith comes when you try. Then you have faith. And faith is pretty much a self-belief in things not seen, but believing that because I've started, I'm going to reach there. And that is hope. And the biggest change and hope that comes as a result of action. Action inspires hope. Zero action only drive less fulfillment. Zero action make people not to believe in themselves. Zero action causes anxiety in that tomorrow will be worried about. Whereas action inspires hope and create a groundswell of solutions in others that they can be able to believe in and move forward. Therefore, in summary to your question, the ability to be able to become teachable, learn, self-belief, and shun entitlement by playing our part is what is needed by everybody.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. And as we're wrapping up, I want to tell the viewers that throughout this interview, we've said a lot of things, but if you have to take one thing from it, it's okay to have fear, but it's not okay to let the fear get to you.
Excellent. Excellent. What's your parting word, Abu?
Well, I think you should just expect the unexpected, and there's only one way to find out if you can do it, by trying. And I think this also links to a lot of aspects, because you only miss the shots you don't take. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. That's the metaphor. So if you don't take your shot, if you don't shoot your opportunity, you're never going to know if you could have actually made it.
Excellent, excellent, Afu. Thank you for those aspects, and thanks to all those who are joining us today at the Mindset Sport. We hope that our discussions today have given you some valuable insights on how to harness fearlessness, that the insights on how to be fearless yet mindful in your actions are going to be helpful. Remember, each one of us has the power to contribute to a sustainable future. And because you have the power to contribute to a sustainable future, you have to innovatively volunteer yourself into the solution space, because innovative volunteerism is about harnessing the power of collective action to make positive change. It's about using your unique skills and talents to contribute to the greater good. And this can involve everything from participating in community clean-up events to developing new technologies that reduce pollution. By volunteering our time and talents, we can help drive transformational solutions to some of the world's most pressing environmental challenges and environmental problems, especially climate change. And so, for all our viewers, remember, each one of us has the power to contribute to a sustainable future. And so join us next time for more discussions and mindset actions. Remember to be fearless, but never careless. Goodbye and take care for now. Bye-bye.